I used to do oil painting when I was fresh out of college. I didn't have a regular job, and I had a lot of time, and I thought it would be fun to learn something creative. So I took up painting. And you know what I was fond of painting? Images of people. I did portraits of my friends, portraits of my friends' parents. I did images of people in imaginary scenes. It was a big challenge for me to accurately portray in oil the image of people. I remember one time, I made a painting of a small child, and without intending to, I made that child to somehow look a little bit like me. I painted the child in my own image, so to speak. It fascinates me to think that a painted image of a person gets to represent the living person. The biggest compliment I ever got as a painter was when a person I painted said, "Hey, this looks exactly like me." An image is meant to be an accurate representation of a person. Now, the Bible tells us that when God created the world, He left His image there. We read this in the book of Genesis. So God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him. Male and female, He created them. When God created humans, He left His image in them. God created humans quite differently from the rest of creation. While our physical makeup and DNA are very similar to other living creatures, there's a huge difference between plants and animals from humans who were created in the image of God. God made humans with a personal touch. God formed Adam from the dust of the earth and gave him life by sharing His own breath. God never did this to the rest of creation. We humans possess the breath of God. God Himself gave us life. God made humans to bear the image or the likeness of God. It means in the simplest terms that we were made to resemble, to be like God. Now, this doesn't mean that God is made of flesh and blood like us. What this means is that humans possess qualities and attributes that resemble what God possesses. God is a God of power and authority, and that part of God's image is reflected in man's dominion and rule over the rest of creation. God is a rational God, and this is reflected in humans' ability to think and reason. God is a moral God, and this is reflected in our ability to choose between right and wrong, good and evil. God is a God of love, and this is reflected in our ability to love God and to love our fellow men. We can also understand the image of God as a representation of God. We get a glimpse of God and the kind of God that He is when we see humans at their best, in their excellence, in their wisdom, at their most loving and most compassionate. The world beheld the ultimate likeness of God when the Son of God came to earth as fully human, all flesh and blood, and yet, at the same time, fully divine. Jesus is the perfect representation of God. We get to know God more fully as we get to know Jesus Christ. And we become better reflections or image of God as we worship Jesus, as we follow Him, and as we become more like Jesus in how we live our lives. So, when people say that we are becoming more like Jesus, I guess God, who created us in His image, takes that as a compliment. And as we become more and more like the God whose image we bear, please keep in mind, faith matters too.